Does this pattern show exactly when and where Bitcoin will bottom and thus break out? Well, that's going to be the focus of today's video, going over some fun stuff in the background. But before we get into some fun stuff, we should get into some sale stuff, which, yes, indeed, we still have our 20% off sale going on for the next week and a half with the code SUMMER20, SUMMER in all capitals, and that'll apply a 20% discount to any one of the programs or services that we have, which you can find a link to in the description below. And you can actually even get 7 days free trial for many of the indicator packages. Anyways, we shall start off now with the topic of the day. I thought that this would be a fun way to take this one with Bitcoin, more or less not really doing much since yesterday's video. However, I do want to continue with the thread of analysis that we've been having now for, it seems like about a week, and expand on this. So daily time frame right here for Bitcoin, we actually have seen something significant happen on yesterday night's closure, and that is the prior price action pivot, which was over here from the 27th of May all the way up above 110,000 US dollars, has now moved down to this price action pivot, which is effectively Tuesday's high, all the way at 106,850 bucks. So that is to say, as long as Bitcoin's below there, yes, there is a bearish bias here. And as long as Bitcoin does have a bearish bias, I'm going to continue to look for it to fill out this range. You'll also notice that these dotted lines would represent the price action pivots trend line extensions, which, by the way, anyone who has a price action pivots indicator, even if you're using a trial right now, you can actually get this new update for free. You get it in the same way that you got the original indicator. Just follow the directions on Teachable, and well, you just claim it from the same side. It's pretty simple, honestly. Anyways, yes. So looking at this, I thought it's super interesting because, as you probably know, I'm not really much of a pattern trader. However, we might be going full circle here because now we do have an automated way of defining trend lines. Perhaps that could actually validate real pattern analysis. So we're going to be looking at this and keeping an eye on it to see if there is like a real edge in it. And then we're going to go into a testing process. But as of right now, what would this effectively be? Well, you have a declining upside trend line as well as a declining downside trend line. Well, that would be your falling channel. Falling channels typically do break out to the upside over time, but until you actually get the breakout confirmation to the upside, downside is, of course, the most likely thing to happen. And in this case, we can see a couple of areas of interest for the downside in terms of targets. One, and obviously most relevant for the short term, would be this dotted line right here, representing the low of the 31st of May, all the way down at 103,200. That is to say that, Bitcoin coming back down around there, probably expect a little bit of a short-term bounce just by the virtue of retesting a low. However, if things do accelerate and actually do break that number, then very likely we're going to be looking at somewhere down towards the bottom side of this, of this bottom trend line right here, the dotted blue line, which effectively would meet up with the green 55 EMA at 100,350 if Bitcoin were to approach that number and break down like literally today. And obviously, as time goes on, this gets marched on further and further south, but you can kind of start to see, the potential for downside and also a date as to, when Bitcoin would approach it. On the other side, this is very obvious to define if the pattern actually does break out to the upside. If Bitcoin trades back above this last price action pivot high here at 106,850, look, you're going to see a probably relatively quick move back up towards 109 to 110-ish region. Maybe even Bitcoin just goes for a new all-time high from there. However, until we actually get the confirmed breakout of this, again, back above there, or daily closing above that topside trend line, at least minimum, I would treat this one, again, with a downside bias. And that's going to be combined with several other things, many of which we've actually gone over on this channel. So let's now go over the setup from yesterday's video and relate this to what we just saw there. This is, by the way, using the Quant Prime service to backtest. And all I'm doing is I'm backtesting a super simplistic setup on a daily time frame, measuring when the red moving average crosses to the downside of the yellow moving average, what has happened generally after that time. And I'm testing from when that cross happens to the green moving average. What sort of a move do we see? How often does it get hit? And for that, we need to use a Quant Prime service. And we can see right here, while this would not be a profitable strategy. So for all the questions that I've gotten about this in the past day, don't play this out as a strategy. This is for general YouTube direction analysis, and can give us a general area of interest. Well, almost 80% of the time, price has come down to that green moving average once you've gotten that cross. Now, the timing of that move, can take some time. Obviously, it doesn't need to happen today nor tomorrow. I mean, even the average of this for when those winning trades have occurred has been actually around 10 days. So even that would put you into about middle of next week, as this one did fire off earlier this week. But But yeah, if Bitcoin were to come down there towards the 55 within 10 days from that presumed entry, well, that'd put us into Tuesday of next week. Again, there's going to be variance. So, maybe the beginning of next week to the end of next week, somewhere in that spread is kind of where you'd be looking for a move like that. And also keep in mind that the green moving average here is all the way down at almost 99,000 bucks. It's going to be crawling up with each and every passing day, by the way. It's a 70 EMA in case you wanted to know. And that is naturally going to line up with the price action pivot trend line here at some point. If we fast forward all the way out to, June 8, 9, somewhere around there, we actually start to see these numbers pop up. Or actually, I think the 7th is when 99 becomes relevant. So again, we're looking somewhere between like the 7th of the month to the 14th of the month for a move like this to occur. If it is going to occur, it gets invalidated with a close or even a trade back above Tuesday's high. And at that point, have to be looking for some pretty decent upside. But like I said, going back on over here, even if this wouldn't necessarily be a profitable strategy to play out, it does give us an edge for understanding where price action is, generally headed towards. And again, almost 80% of the time, it will hit this next moving average, that green one right there. So that is something that, I'd probably want to bet on the same side of. So if I do have to bet on a direction, still, it would be to the downside. On top of all of this, we have also seen Stochastic momentum get a new closure alongside the 5-day here. And the 5-day time frame is now officially crossed to the downside for the first time since, I guess it crossed to the downside over here in January, which is kind of crazy. And then cross the upside in early April. So this is getting its first fresh cross to the downside as long as Bitcoin's below 110 and change. So again, when I see all these higher term timeframes align, it does make me really consider that, again, that is the most likely path of direction for price. 3-day timeframe is also coming down, now about to lose the critical zone on tonight's closure if Bitcoin's below 111,500 bucks. The 2-day timeframe is also nosediving as well. We already know that. 110 is the magical number, and this one is also closing tonight, and even the daily is closing. Well, of course, the daily is closing tonight, like duh, close every day. Anyways, the daily also remains to the downside as long as Bitcoin's below 105 on a closing base, which right now it seems allergic to. So again, if I have to choose a direction, it's going to be at the downside here, potentially all the way down to like 99 or 100,000 bucks. That's kind of the first major areas that I'd be looking for on a big bounce. Naturally, there will be short-term bounces along the way, assuming that this move does happen. But yeah, you can kind of see multiple things lining up with each other. And on top of that, I'll bring you back to the 5-day HPDR setup here, which we've spoken about many, many times now. And the 5-day HPDR setup is super, super simple as well. Look, Bitcoin losing, or basically just stalling around here while volatility starts to actually contract. Anytime that we see this, almost every fucking time, you will see at minimum a test to the median on the HPDR for that time frame. In this case, this is the 5-day time frame, and guess where that is? That is just below 100,000 bucks. So, again, this will update each and every closure. So we got another one in 5 days. But as of right now, if Bitcoin were to try a downside move, again, that number continues to pop up as an area of interest, for downside moves. Actually, I haven't even checked out the daily recently, but let's see. Yeah, daily kind of curling over as well. Not the best signal. But yeah. Anyways, let's do a quick check-in on the quantum wave bands, as these ones are also on sale too for the first time actually ever. And yeah, so after a pretty nasty loss over here and preceded by some pretty epic gains before that, it looks like it took a couple of quick wins over here from yesterday and the day prior, actually back to Monday, and then is in another trade right here. I personally don't like this one, but it is what it is, man. Again, at the end of the day, it's all about that equity curve over a long period of time. It continues up and to the right. That's what we love, and that's why I continue to watch this one. But yeah, you will take losses here and there. And again, that last one from last week, or was it last week? Maybe it was early this week. Sorry, the end of last week. Yeah, that one definitely ate up into it. But at the end of the day, it needs to all be taken into context and consideration of the very long term. So I don't think I have a bad feeling about this one right here, to be honest. But hey, at the end of the day, the algo is what the algo is. So I think we'll leave things on that note. Again, if you're interested in these tools, check them out on the Teachable School. You can get 20% off with the code. All right, probably should have written it down. Fuck. All right, here you go. Summer 20, and there you go. All right. With all of that said, I'd like to wish you the best of best. It's a nice little Thursday morning here. We'll be back on tomorrow with a real live stream. And take care, much love, and see you hopefully Friday.